you already have a good idea of what that means, or you have a feeling about it, or it inspires some kind of idea within you. This is the effect of powerful branding.
An international personal branding coach and certified etiquette advisor, Taylor Elizabeth Perriman is the go-to person for sharpening your soft skills, communication, and table manners. She empowers you to be the best you. I'm frankly a little intimidated by this interview because I'm not one who's known for being prim and proper, but I think this is my chance to learn, probably unlearn and relearn. So I'm very excited to be speaking to you today, Taylor. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm incredibly honored to be here.
So as the founder and director of the Elegance Advisor Consultancy, can you give me an insight about, the different projects that you've worked on?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. And again, it's really a pleasure to have this conversation, so I appreciate it. So I work with a wide range of clientele all over the world. I have clients in 30 different countries. I work from C-suite executives, one-on-one coaching, to professionals really at any point in their career, either because they are going for job interviews or because they just took on a managerial position, for example, and they want to have better presence, communication style, etc. I work with stay-at-home moms, women that have chosen, women actually and men that have chosen to stay at home with their children or to not pursue a career. And then I also work with teenagers doing personal brand development for teenagers, which I have to say are some of my favorite clients. It's empowering to have the trust of them and their parents to give them those tools at a very important and integral part of their life, where they really feel that having awareness, because again, I'm a life coach, in addition to being a certified etiquette coach, an image consultant, and protocol expert, I'm a life coach. So I approach all of my coaching from a life coach. So I'm working on the mindset. And for teenagers, for example, working on personal branding because they want to apply for university, for example, or if they want to have leadership roles at school, they're really thinking, when I was that age, I wish I was thinking like that. I was thinking ahead, I was like really ahead. And to be at that point where I'm able to use everything I've learned and I've studied and I've experienced to be able to aid them on their journey is incredibly rewarding. So those are some of the projects. I also do public speaking. I'm engaged often as a keynote speaker at different things. I've been at Expo several times now. I was just presenting at the Women's Pavilion. Cartier, that was an incredible invitation from Cartier to speak at the Women's Pavilion. It's the first Women's Pavilion they've ever had at an Expo. So I am beyond humbled and honored to have been able to speak there about personal branding. And then I also speak at various, events, women's events, as a motivational speaker, as an inspirational speaker on the topics that I coach on. So personal branding, effective communications and etiquette, things of that nature. So that's kind of the wide range of what I do.
That's amazing. So I didn't realize that you actually cater to such a wide clientele. I always thought it would be, probably just people who are trying to make it in their career, or like maybe people who are entering the, workforce. But I never thought of, including teenagers, and that's such a wonderful thought process. So how did you get into the field, if you don't mind me asking?
I love this question. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I got into this. So my background is international public relations. My academic background is actually in business. I have an MBA in business and a master's degree in international affairs. So it was always international. And for many years, I did international public relations in 5 different continents, in 22 different countries mainly. And in that experience, what I felt really united and what helped me the most, to be very honest, wasn't, the mental acumen from having the MBA and being very strategic in the way I was thinking and having the credentials and everything and all the years of experience. That was wonderful. But really what helped with, negotiate deals or effectively communicate or breach cultures and language, because often I was working with translators or there was no translator and neither of us spoke the same language as the first language. So it's been challenging. And I noticed what really helped me were those soft skills. So they were tact, they were curiosity, they were respect, they were consideration, they were actually, and observing. This is a very big one. It was reading a room, learning how to read a room, being hyper aware in a constructive way of my own behavior and how that impacts other people, and being very sensitive to cross-cultural sensitivity was a huge one as well. So that was an area of interest. Etiquette itself was something that has always been instilled in me from my childhood. I talk about my mother quite frequently on my page. She has been both my parents. My number one blessing is to have my family as my family, guiding me through life and giving me a good foundation. So it started when I was young, this interest in etiquette, and it was very, very stressed in my home. I cannot probably say that enough. It was expected. So I always had an interest in it, and I leaned really into it. And then professionally, when I realized this is kind of what I think really mattered to me, what I really felt resonated with me. And then I had my daughter, and when she was born, unfortunately, it's not possible to travel like I was before. It's life shift, which is often the case for many parents, new parents, regardless of gender. It's big life shift, and so your life really changes. So I decided, I have to do something else. So I will lean into that which I always loved. And my husband was incredibly supportive about this. He was like, I really feel this is, I had met him in a business context. He's like, I always felt that from a business standpoint, this is a unique selling point for you. Lean into it. So then I went back to school. I got a formal diploma in etiquette and protocol. And then I actually sat on it for a while because I struggled. And this was my biggest, I'm probably the proudest because I made it past this, but it was also my biggest challenge, which was I believe fully with all my being that etiquette, consideration, honesty, respect, and kindness for other people, different cultures, different religions, different races, different gender, how you identify anyway, is paramount. It's the paramount. It's the ethos of my being. So I fully believe in that. But what I often feel like is the way that etiquette is taught and the way that maybe protocol, etiquette, and refinement, if you will, of these different characteristics are taught alienates people. And having had the blessing and the fortune of being able to have traveled to so many different countries and been the only person that came from my background and my culture in a room, and what the opportunity that gives you to see things in a different way and the perspective different, that was a gift. There's no way I could give that back. But I felt like when I'm teaching etiquette, I don't want to close any doors for anyone. I don't want to close any mindsets. I don't want to teach it in a way that anyone should feel uncomfortable by what I'm teaching them, because then you have missed the point and you will not be as effective in what you're doing. As a coach and as a teacher, I would like those people that have come to me because they are aware that they would like to change something within themselves, which they have within themselves to do that, we all do, that they feel empowered to do it. And in order to feel empowered, they shouldn't feel intimidated, or they shouldn't feel like this is only for elite, or this is only for certain class of society or a certain color of people. Just because you didn't have this when you were growing up doesn't mean that it's not for you. In fact, this is a skill that will help anyone, no matter where they are in life, no matter what they're doing, because these are skills. And so I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to teach this in a way in which it doesn't alienate people? And because immediately when I tell somebody I do etiquette for a living, immediately there's a lot, and their body language changes immediately. And then in addition to that, obviously, and for very respected and I understand reasons, and I have full respect for all etiquette coaches and my fellow colleagues that do teach in this manner, because that is a choice and that's effective for them. But for me, with my ethos and what I was trying to achieve and my experience, it didn't resonate. So I was like, how am I going to do this? And I actually sat on it because I didn't want to come across as alienating anyone, or as basically, telling somebody that these are the rules and you have to follow and you need to look like this and you have to behave like me, because that's not what I'm coaching. I'm not coaching to behave like me. I'm empowering people to be the best version of who they are through these skills and through these things. So I finally got over that in a way, and this is where wonderful things happen when you're not expecting it. Unfortunately, the pandemic hit, and I had already opened my consultancy before that, and I was doing one-on-one clients, but I was really still struggling with this. Like, what is my brand going to be? What is the brand going to be? And the brand was, I want it to be all these things I just mentioned, but I wasn't sure how. And so because of the pandemic and my clients not being very zoomed out in the beginning. So I don't know if you remember, but everybody was burnt out on Zoom in the very beginning. We became much more used to it over like 6 months. And in Dubai, which is where most of my my clients at that time were in Dubai. It was very overwhelming because we were in lockdown. So we went into lockdown quite early, which was a wonderful decision on the leadership here. And they did a really great job of managing this whole process. When we went into that, people were like, oh, I'll just do it later. It's okay. We'll pick up our sessions later. Because we all thought it was going to be over in like 6 weeks, 3 months or something. So I had some time and I went into doing my online, so my presence in social media. And that is actually through the wonderful community that we have built of people all over the world. This is where I was able to really find my passion and my purpose really came together, and my voice really came together, and I was able to get over that biggest challenge. Well, my biggest accomplishment, I think, is taking that step and finding that voice. And then the challenge was doing it, because I really struggled. I did really struggle in the beginning with it. And then I feel like, really honestly, by the grace of God, to be very honest, it all came together in a very challenging time for the world to be able to, through the support of a community out there that was, embracing this new message in the new way I was presenting it. Because I think we often are so worried about, is this gonna fail or not? I mean, failure is something we all go through. Even though I don't like to call it failure, it's always an opportunity to grow if you think about it the right way. But even then, it still sits on us heavy, failure a little bit, that worry about it, And I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And the Instagram page really helped me put the right voice onto what I was trying to communicate. So that's a very long answer about how I got into this, but that's the whole answer into how I got into it. And then from there, it's gone into all the different things I spoke about before, coaching C-suite, to doing group sessions, to doing teens, doing public speaking, things like that. Yes.
Okay, great. So how many years have you been doing it? When did you make the switch?
So I did international public relations until we moved to Dubai, which was in 2017. And so I started my consultancy in 2019 here. So my daughter was quite young when we moved here. She was under a year. So I waited and got myself adjusted. And then I started. My husband and I also have a business here that we started here together when we first moved here. And we also have another business in Europe. So I was working on those, which was, as a woman, it feels empowering to go back into the workforce. It's intimidating, but it feels empowering. It has always worked. For me, it was really important to go back into that. And I did appreciate the other two positions that I was working in. But when I started my own consultancy, it's when I really felt like it was, one of the most empowering things actually I've ever done was like launching that and going into it. And then when I found my voice, like I mentioned, that was probably my moment of, really feeling like it's a wonderful thing when your passion meets your purpose.
Very nice. That's wonderful. I mean, it was so nice hearing this entire answer. I think especially the part where you said, it's right, because I always, whenever I would hear the term, elegance advisor or anything of this sort, etiquette advisor, I'd just be intimidated. You're right. That's the first thought that comes into my head. But now speaking to you and getting to know about what you do and how you kind of approach it, I've also calmed down a little. You've probably seen my body language change as well.
Yes. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. I've calmed down now.
Good. So, yeah. Wonderful.
Who is your inspiration? I'd love to ask. Is it, like you said, your mom? That's something you keep bringing up. So is she your inspiration, or is there someone else as well?
Absolutely my mother. Before everything. So my mother and I again, my parents are my biggest blessing. The way in which they, as a woman, and because we're an International Women's Day week, and I've been very heavily active in several programs here, it's kind of where my mindset is right now with that. My parents raised me, both of my parents, to be really empowered as a human being. So gender regardless. I do fully embrace the fact that I have that privilege because of where I was raised, and I didn't have to face a lot of adversities that other women have to face. So I will embrace that part. But they did really stress me, like, as a human being. I never felt limited because I was a woman. And then having my mother as my immediate role model is a huge blessing, even above that, because she is incredibly capable. She is very smart, very capable, very strong. It's amazing. What she can do in one day is really impressive. So you really get a very strong role model. And I've been very lucky because all of my aunties around me, so my biological aunts, but also my mother's friends, all the aunties that are always around me all the time, they've all been very strong, very empowered, very empowering women. Very different, all very different, all different communication styles, all different dress, all different everything, but the same feeling like good human beings. So that has been empowering me as a woman. I've never thought of it as a limitation. So on that part, as a woman, so my mother beyond, and from an elegance standpoint as well. joking aside, like I often talk about elegance really starts within. It's a mindset. It's the way in which we interact. It's a choice that we make. It's the way in which we hold ourselves, etc. The last part, which is a product of that, is the way that you dress. My mother, to speak on that very narrow part of what elegance is, my mother and I often will come showing up to the same thing and having, bought an outfit in 2 different countries, but the same. So my style came definitely from my mom. That was a huge blessing as well. And she owned it. She had a lot of confidence in that. So that was great. So my mom. And then I think I often quote her, and I think somebody that really inspired me is the Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is the second female Supreme Court Justice in the United States, not only for what she did for women's rights in the United States, but the way in which she did it. So her intelligence first and foremost, her resilience in what she went through in her life, but the way in which she did it, she wasn't, because I always believe in effective in your communication. So again, we always talk about you can only control your behavior, not other people's behavior, that you're responsible for that we should do things in a way in which you are communicating, a way in which you are most effective towards reaching whatever objective. And I really feel like she did that. In fact, she has a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase her quote because I don't think I have it exact, but it's like, you should fight for the things that you feel passionate about, but you should do it in a way that leads others to your point, so you do it in a way that brings people on board with you, not that alienates people. So you're smart about what you're doing. And she always did it that way. I mean, this is when in my page, when we have discussions about those really difficult conversations and you need to set a boundary, you can be direct but kind. You can set a boundary. You can still be strong in everything you're saying, but you can do it in a respectful, inclusive way so that you're being heard and that you bring people on board to where you are. So I think those are probably my 2 women inspirations, are the one from my personal life, and then a Supreme Court Justice, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, for sure.
Great. That's wonderful. So can you tell me, is there a lot of competition in this field that you're in?
So yes and no. And I love this question. So thank you very much. Yes and no. So there are a lot of people that coach etiquette, if you will. Okay. And there's a lot of people that coach, and they do it very well, to be very honest with you. I'm going to give full support to all of and I don't call them competitors. I'm going to call them, we're all colleagues in this together, because there's something that is attracting us to all coach this in our own way, and I'm going to lean into that thread that connects us all, which is that this is of value to us, no matter how we're coaching it and how we're teaching it. There are a lot of people that do personal brand development, again, in a very wide variety of ways. And there are people that do effective communications coaching. So those are the 3 different areas mainly that I coach in. So the answer is, in that way, yes, there is quite a bit. In the way in which I do it, no, there's not, because I coach it in a different way. So I do work with men and women, and it's mainly women, but I do coach men as well. The way in which I approach the subject is I'm a certified life coach with a license, not just, it's something I did online. Like I went to school and received this because it was very important to me, because I realized, again, when I was going through that process of coaching, that I was really coaching because I'm the elegance advisor. And I'm coaching a mindset, because again, elegance starts with your mind, with the way you're looking at things. It starts first within ourselves, to assess ourselves fairly and constructively, and then adjust our behavior through how we interact with people, how we choose to speak, how we choose to hold ourselves, how, etc. And then how we choose to dress. So it extends to this. So I was realizing it's very niched what I'm coaching in, because I'm using all these 3 areas I mentioned before, etiquette, effective communications, and personal branding, as skills to support a larger shift in one's mindset towards being a more elegant individual. And each of my clients define what that means for them. I mean, there's elegant and not elegant, because you'll see from my page, in the sense of, chewing with your mouth open and speaking with your mouth full is not elegant, but that's very black and white. There are other things where we have, through our own way of expression, being that is how you're going to define elegance for yourself and your behavior for yourself. So I use those 3 different areas as tools. So I'm kind of, I guess, floating between all of those areas. I think also my background is quite unique. So I come from Western culture. I was raised in the United States of America, on the East Coast of the United States of America. Again, with my family, a blessing. I've been traveling since very, very young age. My first birthday was spent in Paris, and I spent, a lot of time traveling. And then career-wise, I, again, very grateful and humbled that I was able to travel as I was able to. So I have a very different and unique perspective. I also have worked in 22 different countries and in East Asia a lot. So I have a lot of experience working in East Asia. So I bring, a lot of times we can read things and we can study things, but until we're on the ground and actually having to face it, it's subtle and you learn things. And so I think I bring a very unique experience about especially cross-cultural sensitivity. And then my own personality, which is I really enjoy being a person like myself in a room. I enjoy those moments of, we've talked about this many times on my page, I enjoy moments where I'm uncomfortable because that's a moment that I'm learning. Again, I'm learning about myself, I'm learning about the situation, I'm learning about the person in front of me, and I'm learning about how I can best do this. Now, sometimes you succeed, like you're like, this is amazing, I did really well. And sometimes you're like, that wasn't my best moment, but I'm going to learn from it. So I really enjoy that. So I think I bring, the different unique blend of how I'm combining all these three areas, the education, the experience, but also my personality and my natural inclination to being really interested in learning. And really, it's like a coach is always being coached by other coaches, and we're also on a journey, and I am very much invested in that. So I'm constantly learning and growing and trying to push myself a little bit more. So I think in that way it's unique. So the answer to your question, which is a long one, is yes and no. I mean, yes, there are in the three areas that I coach from, but no, not really in the unique way that I do it.
Do you face any resistance in what you do? I mean, do people sometimes think that these, etiquette rules are a little too restrictive? I mean, this is just what I'm asking based on what I've seen from other etiquette coaches, but I don't know if that's how you operate, but this is just a question that I have.
Yeah. Yes, no, of course. No, yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. So with any, exactly what we have previously spoken about, and not to sit on that topic too long, when anyone hears that I do etiquette coaching, because really what I say, I'm an elegance advisor. And because that's unique and very niched, people are like, what is that? And I say, well, I combine coaching in etiquette, effective communications, and personal branding. But as soon as they hear the etiquette, immediately the body language changes. Usually people get very apprehensive. If I'm eating with them, it's like a disaster because people get very worried. I have to say, for the record and on the record, unless someone is my client and they've and even caveat within that, and they've hired me for table manners, I am not noticing or criticizing anyone's table manners. Anyone. So friends, colleagues, associates, anyone I've met at a dinner party. And when I say, people are like, well, how can you not see it? I'm like, because I'm not, it's like coaching. It's like doctors. A doctor isn't always looking for someone's symptoms that they're ill with something unless they're being asked, So it's kind of like you turn it off. So I'm not judging anyone. So do I get it a lot? Yes, I do. I get this, especially because, again, etiquette is polarizing. That specific part of what I do, in the sense of people either love it and they gravitate towards it because it's something they've always been interested in, they were raised with it, and they see a value, or it's the opposite because they feel alienated, excluded, and that it's elitist often. Yeah. So it's like those two extremes. So yes, I do. And also because it's taught as rules. So what I'm trying to do is change the discourse a little bit, as we discussed before, about that it's not, these are actually skills to empower you and for you to use in situations when you need to, so that you actually can put your best self forward because you're not worried about which fork to use, for example, or how to do this because you know. Do you have to do it every day? Is it like there's the etiquette police over your shoulder checking everything every day? No. If you are doing this every day, it becomes a habit. And when it becomes a habit, it becomes part of who you are. And therefore, it's an extension of you. And therefore, you don't have to think about it anymore. So do I encourage everyone to adopt these things every day? Yes. But at the same time, how many other things do we have going on in a daily basis? A lot. Mm-hmm. And so if for some reason you forget to, when you're drinking your tea, that you're holding it in a slightly different way. Oh, okay. Honestly, for me, it's try to do it in a way where if a situation arises, you feel empowered because you have the skill. And then if you do it, or whatever you are doing, in table manners in particular, for example, then just do it in a most discreet way you can. So if you don't know what you're doing or you aren't sure, just work on discretion and you'll be fine. Like this is, and there are some basic table manners that I always talk about that we should just try to focus on those. The rest of them are additional skills. So yes, I do reach, people do have a response to when I say that there's the etiquette, but at the same time, again, the way that I try to coach it is I try to coach it in a way in which it's not restrictive. It's skills that empower, and it's not judgmental. So judgment is so far away from myself. I really try to keep judgment out of any of this. And any of my clients I work with, I will assure that they have not felt judged in any way, shape, or form, because they're coming to me to develop a skill.
Okay, great. So as an extension to this question, so do people sometimes take the input that you have as criticism? Like, is all the advice that you give out, is it accepted well, or are you used to getting some resistance when it comes to what you tell them?
Yes. So I do get resistance. I have to say, I mean, from a coaching standpoint, no, because usually when somebody comes to me for coaching, it's because they have come to the awareness that there's something that needs to be improved, or that they would like to improve. That's the awareness part. Awareness is from a coaching standpoint, or from a change of behavior standpoint, is the hardest and the largest part of that. So they've sought me out to do that. So that's already kind of like half the battle is already done, if not more than half the battle. Then once they've already come to me, they're not really resisting what I'm telling them. So what they're seeing from me is skills. They're not seeing criticism or a negative assessment. They're seeing it as, okay, this is how I'm going to change this, because I know it's an issue. So it's kind of like, I see the value, I see the need, and this is how we're going to do it. In Instagram, for example, or maybe if I'm giving a larger lecture for people that have just been invited to attend, but they're not the ones that came to me specifically to do the lecture. Yes, I sometimes, but I have to say, Instagram, I'm really grateful, because we don't get a lot of that, to be very honest with you. We don't have a lot of negativity. It's very empowering. We don't get a lot of people, I think, again, because it comes from a really genuine place within myself of trying to really help people to be the best version of themselves through what I know, and for them to feel empowered in this way. And I always start with, please take what I'm teaching that resonates with you. If it doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. There's no judgment with that, and you should not feel badly about it. If it's not applicable to your life, if this doesn't, there are certain things you read it in newspaper or online, you're like, this doesn't really, I'm not really that interested in this, or that's not really, that's not really my thing, or whatever. That's totally fine. You don't have to feel compelled to do these things. Although I do still get some questions and some feedback about, why are you policing, especially with table manners? Why are you policing the way that I'm eating? And the thing is, I respect 100% the point that they're making to me, for many reasons. The first one is that it's teaching me that I need to do a different approach. It's teaching me that there are certain things that are going to be sensitive for certain people, and maybe there's a better way to impart this knowledge, because my goal is to have people learn. And so if I'm doing something, or I'm teaching it in a way that is limiting my ability to reach that objective, then I need to adjust it. So it's always a growth and learning thing. Then there's also the acceptance of, we all are going to come at this at different ways, and some people are not going to see what the intention is regardless, and they're going to feel this way about it. And again, they're still totally entitled to feel the way they feel about it. So I do get this, like the policing a little bit, especially with table manners, but majority, I would say no. And then when we do get comments like this, or when we do have people that reach out to us and say that they feel that, luckily we've never had any issues of people feeling marginalized, which is wonderful. We've never had any issues, at least expressed to us, where people feel that they have been, disrespected or anything, which I couldn't imagine, but they don't feel that way. But when they have questions, we always try to address it in a constructive manner, where, we're again empowering the change and why we're explaining it this way. And again, saying that these are skills, please use them as you see useful. Yeah, in the needful.
Okay, great. So you keep mentioning something on your website, and that really caught my eye. It's something called the cultural IQ. Yes. Can you tell me a little more about this?
Yes. So we have emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is something that has really caught on in the last, I would say probably like 7-8 years, something like this. It's been a big component within the corporate world, but also, everybody. There's so many books about it. Now we have a lot of mentors on social media and elsewhere that's talking about, it's like lifestyle and things of that nature, like how to it's a mindset shift, right? This way when it comes to being more emotionally intelligent, because it helps us with our relationships, it helps us with our jobs, etc. So with this, what I'm talking about here, this cultural IQ is what it is basically being aware of your emotional intelligence, even transform more not narrow, but in the sense of more focused onto how culture impacts things. So culture is where you're from, and culture is very layered, right? So as an American, when I say that I'm American, immediately people have certain assumptions about the culture that I come from. Some of those are going to be very accurate. The stereotype is going to be very accurate. But then even where I'm from in the United States changes my culture significantly. So if I meet someone from an opposite part of the United States, so I'm from the Northeast, if I meet somebody from Texas or from California or from the Northwest, we will have cultural differences because we are from a different part of a very large country. India, very similar, same thing. You could say it's a very large country. You have many different cultures, even within the culture, even within the religions, even within the sects within the religions. I mean, it changes, and your culture is affected by your country. It's affected by gender. It's affected by your family structure. It's affected by your religion. It's affected by even in the environment in which you grew up in. So like a village or a city, there's so many different things that affect our culture. And so I've really focused on, through my travels and having a lot of experience to different cultures and being very curious about things and trying to do it in the elegant way, asking, I've really developed sensitivity and a way in which you develop that sensitivity and awareness. So one is it's a mindset. So the first one is we have to open our minds about way we're looking at another human being in front of us, because unfortunately we all have bias. Everyone has bias. It's a human condition. Like with anything, we just have to be aware that it exists. We have to challenge that bias, and we have to not give into it, and we have to educate ourselves as to what culture means in this context. It's not just like, for example, if I'm looking at somebody from India, it's not going to be so like just a list of things and it's very narrow. It's not at all. You have to open the mind and you have to take in what you're learning. You have to learn how to be curious and respectful and considerate and sensitive to what you're dealing with, and fight the bias at all times. So that's what I mean by that. So you're developing your intelligence in this manner when it comes to culture. It's a re-education of our mind. It's a fighting of a bias, and it's a curiosity, and that's basically what that is. Yeah,
that's nice. So what's the process like? Now, suppose a client approaches you and they want to get sort of a one-on-one coaching. What's the process? What does it look like, and how long does it take?
So if anybody's interested in coaching, they can contact me either by email. So it's info@theeleganceadvisor.com, and they can set up a one-on-one. So there's always an initial consultation. Again, I do one-on-one coaching. I also do group coaching. So for example, I do workshops and seminars, public speaking. I do it online or in person. So obviously in the UAE, and now because travel is opening a little bit, I do travel also to do these courses, but traveling is opening now, thank goodness. So it's a lot easier. But for quite some time, I've only been doing it in this region, but I do online. So if anybody's interested, they would send me an email, and then we would set up a consultation. So similar to the conversation we're having now about what their interest is and what areas, and then what we can offer. And then I would send them, I have a course catalog, so different courses that I can give. And then we can do specific proposals depending on if it's something, because all of my programs are tailored to include these three different elements. So the etiquette part, effective communications, and the personal branding. And then how long really depends. So workshop can just one time, it can be on retainer, which is some of my clients, in which I do like once a month, I go into their office and I do one subject with a Q&A, similar to what I do online with a Q&A. And then the next month we do a different topic, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one option. Just one-off, professional development, which a lot of HR is very interested in doing, like professional development, which is about 3 to 4 hours or half day, or 2 hours sessions. And then with individual clients, I have some clients I've been working with for it'll be almost 2 years now. So I've been working with them 2-year retainer. So it's like once a month, twice a month kind of a thing, or as needed. So if they have something going on, for example, they have a big presentation, or they're going through a promotion, they're going through an interview process for a promotion or for a new position within their company, or they've just launched a new company, new product, or whatever it is, and they need some advice on presence and things like this, then it could be quite heavy. And then maybe I only work with them then back on a retainer basis once a month. So it's really a wide variety, but they all start with the same thing, which is a free consultation by phone or by Zoom to discuss what they would like to do. But I do coach, again, I mentioned I have clients from all over. So I do a lot of Zoom, a lot of Teams meetings like this. Yes.
Okay, great. So I have a question. Now, first impressions, there's a lot of weight put around this word. So are they in fact lasting impressions, or can they be a little deceptive? What is your thought as an elegance advisor and, image consultant? What is your thought on this?
Yeah. So first impressions are really important. And I just gave a presentation for a women's retreat on Women's Day, and a big part of this is first impressions. It would be wonderful if we did not judge each other by what we see, by the external, so by what we see immediately. But unfortunately, we're human beings and we're wired this way. So we do it. It's a subconscious meeting our conscious kind of thing. And unfortunately, it's very fast. So it's within the first 7 seconds of meeting someone, you're already judging people and making assessments assessments about their intelligence, about their affluence, about, likability or not likability, about whether they're, able to do something or not, or if they're intelligent or not, etc. So we're already kind of judging people right from the beginning. So this is why first impressions matter so much. I'll get into the lasting impression afterwards, and if they can be deceptive, because what that first impression is doing, nonverbal communication. So most of our communication is nonverbal. Depending on the study, it's somewhere between 75 and 90% is nonverbal, which means it's the way in which our body language, it's our tone. And then the last part is actually what we say, because we're judging everything we're seeing in front of us. So why? It's because we're trying to figure out, it's a safety thing. It's a question of creating fit. So is this person fit? Is this that question of, do I like their energy or not? I don't like their energy, or I like that person or I don't. It has very little to do with the substance of our character and what we're saying. Unfortunately, it's everything that we visual or non-verbal in the sense of there's tone, but anyway, but not the content of what we're saying. So because we want to start in a good place, that's why it's so important, because it's very hard to undo that initial feeling of I like this person or I don't like this person, or in a professional setting, this person is competent, this person is professional, or this person is not. Like it's very hard to undo that because we're wired this way already. So that's the negative news, if you will. The positive news is that we have many different ways that we can control that narrative, based upon, like, for example, the way that we dress. So making sure that we're neatly dressed and well presented, and that we're coming forward, that our body language is engaging, and that we are sending the right signals by our body language, so that we have open body language and we have open, good facial expressions, that we're encouraging this in a constructive way, and that we, hold ourselves well, and that our tone is inclusive and it's not, condescending, and it's not aggressive, etc. So we have control over that. When it comes to, can you ever misread that? Well, absolutely. There's going to be always an outlier statistically with that. Although generally speaking, I would have to say from my experience, first impressions usually hold, and usually you're like, okay, so maybe sometimes, and you probably have this conversation. I know, for example, you meet someone, you're like, oh, I never thought you were like that. I always thought, I didn't know that part about you, that kind of a thing. That's telling me something about that first impression. You're lucky because that person felt confident enough to be able to tell you that, which means that you overcame something that happened in that first impression, which that's one of those uncomfortable moments where you can lean in and be like, I'm going to learn from this, and what can I do? Because unless you're okay with the assessment, so you could be like, okay, that's actually okay. That's what I was that's the first impression I was trying to give. So it's okay. But if it wasn't, you can lean into that. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't think that way. So what was it about that? Let me see if I can, adjust my behavior to make sure I'm giving a good impression. So they usually last. Sometimes you're like, wow, maybe it was because we have bad days. We have bad days, bad situations, stressful. I mean, it could be many different reasons why you didn't put your best self forward. You can make up from them. How you make up from a bad first impression is is consistency. So it's commitment and consistency. So every single time you meet with these people, if the first one wasn't amazing because your body language or the way you were dressed or whatever it was, tone, because it was a bad day, then just every time since then, you're offering another narrative for the brain. That's the lasting impression, is kind of being consistent and committing to it and making sure you're constantly showing up as this is your personal brand. So as the personal brand that you want to show up as, the way you behave, the way you communicate, and the way that you look and the way that you are. So you can do it. Lasting impressions, again, when you meet somebody for the first time, there's the first 7 seconds, and then there's how you end it. So how you end it is really important too, because again, you want to strengthen that first good impression by acknowledging the person, keeping the good body language, using their name, etc. like that. So the lasting impression is good as well. Sometimes though, and there's outliers, sometimes we can have a really good first impression from somebody. We're like, I really like this person, and it turned into something totally different. But for me personally, that doesn't happen too often. Now, granted, I'm also studying people's body language, and I'm hyper aware to that, if you will. But at the same time, I think really it does say a lot, your first impression. So that's why it's so important to master that when you meet someone.
True.
All changes, just because you were like this before doesn't mean you cannot go back to it. In fact, when you do go back, now it's going to be even more profound, and you're probably going to be able to do it even better, because now you have, when we become parents, it's like I find that not only does your lifestyle shift, but I think your mindset, everything is just different. It's like you are able to balance so many more things. You look at things much more objectively, and also more critically at certain ways as well. You can balance and manage so many different things that you didn't think necessarily you were going to. Priority shifts, perspective shifts, a lot of things shift. So when you go back into it, like anything, so if there's a behavior that you were, for example, maybe you were a little bit more focused on presence. So how you hold yourself when you're sitting, for example. And then, also when you have a child, it's something on your body. It's not easy. It takes things from our body. I mean, we just gave a life to another human being, so it's not easy. So if that's a refocus for whatever reason, just to give an example, that's kind of narrow, but if that's a refocus, give yourself awareness to that you want to change it. Give your small incremental changes. So when you're sitting around and you realize that maybe you're sitting in a way that was, because maybe you were breastfeeding for a very long period of time, so you're used to sitting in a certain way. Or if you're used to just sitting on the floor because your child is playing all the time and you're physiologically used to it, and now you feel like you're always in that position, just bring awareness to it and try to make some change. And then try, like incremental changes. And then eventually it will become habit, but don't be too hard on yourself, because this is a journey towards going back in elegance or in etiquette or things like that. It's just bringing awareness that you want to change, knowing how you're going to do it, and then committing to it slowly, not big steps, especially because I think as parents, especially new parents, we put so much pressure on ourselves, way too much pressure on ourselves. And there's this idea of perfection that we need to reach. And I think perfection limits us in so many different ways, because it's defined as outside. We should be defining that for ourselves on the inside, not have perfection coming and looking and judgmentally at us. It should be empowering us from the inside to be the best version of you. And that's part of us as parents. It's not easy to get back to that. So that would be my suggestion. If you want to get back into having more presence or more elegance or more focus on etiquette, just focus on one thing, small, and then small steps, and don't be too hard on yourself. And also embrace the fact that you're a parent now, because it's wonderful. And it will give you, being a parent gives you a whole other skill set that it is impossible in many ways to have that exact same experience skill set, because it's kind of like trial by fire a little bit. Like you're just like, okay, I have to figure this out. And now you have a whole other element that you would never have had that otherwise. So embrace that and lean into that as well.
Sort of learning and, like I said, unlearning, relearning from you. So that's great. So I personally love eating food with my hands. That's probably a reflection of, my culture, being Indian. So I mean, when I go out, I try to follow etiquette tips, but when I go to an Indian restaurant, I'm eating like full on with my hands. Yes. So what is your thought on this, on probably people eating with their hands if they are culturally used to it, and maybe they can't adapt to a situation where they have to eat with like a fork and knife and use your cutlery and follow the table etiquette manners of the West?
Yes. So thank you for this question. So if you're eating Indian food in India or anywhere, frankly, if that's how the cuisine is supposed to be eaten, or is most typically eaten, then please, by all means, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, period. I mean, there's really nothing else to say. If you like to eat Indian food with your hands or with the bread or whatever else you're eating it with, then or even with the rice, this is how it's done. So by no means should Western etiquette be dictating that whatsoever or affecting it. if you are in an environment that is, for example, if you're in a restaurant that is a Western restaurant, or if you are in the West, or if you are in anywhere, even in East Asia, and they're eating with fork and knife, they're not eating, with or they're eating with chopsticks, but if you don't know how to use that, then a fork and knife, then I would suggest using the fork and knife in that case. In that case, it would be, I think it's always good to try to practice a little bit of knowing how to use it, just so that you are not, this is a skill development. Again, to go back to a great question that you had about people feeling like judged or people feeling bad about it. I totally understand where that's coming from. It's not, you do not need to know what every single fork means and all the names, because there's so many different forks. You don't need to know what every fork is, or exactly how to hold the fork. If you're holding it slightly right, really, that's not the point. It's just, if you're able to use it discreetly and it functions, then you've already won, and that's fantastic. And you've done really well in that case, especially if it's very foreign for you, especially if this is something that's not. But generally speaking, when you are in an environment that is dictating the use of a utensil, then you should be following the utensils that are used, because not all food is eaten with the hands. Conversely, however, if somebody from a Western culture goes to India, for example, or goes whatever, I would encourage them to try to eat in the way in which it's eaten, because it's respecting the culture. You're opening your curiosity, you're challenging yourself, and this is where, having traveled to so many different countries, this is where I feel like you really make a bond with those people around you, because you are embracing their culture. You are not staying, although there would be no judgment of anyone from a Western culture going into India and eating with a fork and knife. There would never be, of course not. But by adopting, or at least trying, or leaning into a culture where you want to, because what you're saying by that, without words, is you're saying that you want to be a part of this. You don't want anything to be excluding you from being a part of this. And you are committing to that, even if clearly you're uncomfortable because you have no idea what you're doing, but at least you're really showing something. And that speaks louder than words. So I would encourage anyone from a Western culture to try to do that, because it's really, you really express yourself in so many, and remember, form those relationships. So you have an opportunity to deepen a relationship with people, professionally or personally, by doing that. So it does work the other way too, for using your hands versus using a fork and knife.
Very true. Amazing. I love that. So how important is wardrobe to a person's overall image? I'd love to get, a few insights from you on this.
Sure. Again, because when we meet someone for the first time, unfortunately, we are judged by the way that we look. I wish we could get past that, but unfortunately, it's immediate. The first 7 seconds, usually we haven't even said anything yet. It's our body language and the way that we're dressed. So when it comes to image, I always give the most important things to focus on are your fit, the fit, the fabric, and the finishing. So how the garment is made, the fabric of the garment, and the fit of it, that it fits. It's also the detail. So is it well presented? So is it clean, not holes? Is it ironed, or at least not super wrinkled, something of this nature? And then, being aware of time and place. So time and place is incredibly important, meaning knowing when is the right time and the right place to wear certain things. Now, as speaking to women in particular, that is not because you should, I'm not saying one should not express their style or should not embrace their body. They absolutely should embrace their body. I am by no means saying that you should not wear clothing that shows your body. You should do what is empowering to you, but there's always a time and place for all of that. Because, for example, you would not wear high-heeled shoes to go hiking somewhere outside because it's not practical. Same thing, you would not wear with friends, maybe on an evening out dancing to the boardroom, because that's time and place. So it's just always being very aware of time and place, and then knowing your body. So when you are dressing, all you're trying to do with your body, all bodies are beautiful, all shapes are beautiful, all colors are beautiful. This is not a question of that, skin tone, none of those things. What it is it's balancing your shape and bringing out the best in the body that you have, not the body that you want to have or dream to have, the actual body that you have. And we all have different shapes, and it's all about creating the balance. So the image is very important because people judge you immediately by it. In order to put your best self forward, you should know those things that can help do that, which again is having clothing that fit, that are clean, that are not branded necessarily, not expensive, just it looks pulled together and with intention. It's worn at the right time and place, so you feel appropriate and that you feel like a part of everything that's going on, and that you are balancing your body. So you know what fits your body best to create a harmonious image, which would be in the sense of, again, it's not a question of taste, like if you like things that are more fitted or not more fitted. It's a question of creating within that. It's a question of creating balance on your body to put your best image forward. So it is important, especially in a professional environment. It's very important because, again, they may never speak. Somebody that's from a visiting office that's coming to see you, or a potential client, you may never speak to them, but they see you and they see how you come across, and there's a professional look and there's a non-professional look, regardless of what your office dress code is. There's a professional way with intention, and then there's one that is not, and that may seal a deal for you, or it may cause one to fall apart. So it is very important.
Very true. Actually, Taylor, I have to again compliment the way you just outline all of these answers. You're so sensitive of, people's cultures and the way they look, and absolutely every aspect of us being a human being. And I really love that, because I'm someone who's sort of plus size myself, and the way you sort of put that answer made me feel very included, and even someone who's on the other end of the spectrum, they feel very included. So I really love how you sort of navigate through all of that.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very touching. I'm very honored by that comment. We all are beautiful in our own way, and that we should embrace that which makes us unique. There's no other person like us out there. We should lean into and embrace that. And again, that perfection projection comes from outside. That should be coming from inside and embracing it. And I think those tips that I gave, I really try to make it not inclusive, but applicable for everyone. I want everyone to feel. Of course, I want it inclusive, but the idea is, this is for everyone. So it's for everyone, and there's beauty. We all are beautiful. All of our bodies are beautiful. All shapes are beautiful. All colors are beautiful. All skin tones are beautiful, etc. Just let's kind of like level that up even higher by balancing it by, wearing things that fit, etc. So thank you for your comment. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So what are your top 3 tips for someone who wants to, enhance their image and look more elegant and put together?
3 tips. That's thank you. There are so many. One is know your body shape, as I mentioned before. So know your body shape, because that will help you in the style of dress. So within the way that you like to dress, if you're conservative or not conservative, or whatever it is, or if you dress Western, or if you dress more traditional, whatever that is, also know within that your body shape, because that will help you balance it. So that's number 1. Please always dress with intention. So when you are dressing for something, I think we can see this from a mile away or a kilometer away. When you see someone, you can see that they look, the feeling will be, they look pulled together, right? They look like it's because they made intention with their look. They committed to it. They were like, I'm going to look this way. And so in everything, it's not that everything has to be matching or everything has to be branded or any of that. It's just, you look at them and they're like, clearly they made an effort, and people see that effort. So please make it an effort. When it comes to making an effort, still in this point number 2, is always try to dress one level up. And I do not mean by that to dress in, like, for example, if you're going to an event, I'm not saying you should wear it like a very formal sari for like a regular event, for example. I'm not saying that level up, kind of a thing. But you always, whenever you're going to anything, always just make a little bit more of an intention. So for example, in a professional environment, dress a little bit up from what the dress code is, because again, it's showing the intention and the commitment towards being a professional individual. If you're going to an event, like maybe it's a girlfriend's party or something, maybe you normally would wear jeans in a sweater or something, or jumper or something like this. Maybe that's what you normally would wear. Instead, maybe you put a silk shirt on and maybe an accessory or something like that, because you're showing an intention. Also, this is not just an intention towards supporting your friend's party and showing that you care and you're committed, but it's also to yourself. You're doing something for yourself there, not because you have to in order to be beautiful, not because you have to in order to be anything, but it's like something for you. You're investing in you, you know what I mean? In a different way, in whatever way you feel. If that's makeup, if you wear makeup, you do not have to. But if one wears makeup, that would be that way. You know what I mean? Just one level up. And I guess the last thing, I think, your body shape, your dressing one level up with intention, having clothing that that fits with the fabric. I mean, I just to stress that again, like really, it does not need to be, it really does not need to be branded. Totally non-judgmental way for casual clothes. I don't feel my best and truest self when I'm in more casual clothing, but I have been like this since I was a child. So leaning into things that fit you and your person and your brand. So fitting, so not just the fitting of the clothing, but it fits who you are and speaks to it. It doesn't have to be, again, what you see on a mannequin somewhere else. It doesn't have to be what's super trendy right now either. It doesn't have to be any of those things. It should be something that fits and that is well made, like a good fabric, and that again flatters your figure. I really have, for example, the jumpsuit that I'm wearing now, I have this in several different colors. I wear it very often. It's made by a designer here. I really, really appreciate her skill in her designs, and I absolutely love it. So for me, it's very me. It's very my fit, and it fits me well also because I have it made to fit me. So I would rather invest in something like this, and even if it's the same and I have like 5 of them, I'd rather wear this all the time because it fits me. It puts the right image forward, etc. So that would be, I would say again, balancing your body, making sure that you have intention and that it fits you as a human being, but also fits you on your body. Those would be my tips for fashion.
Okay, great. I think that would help a lot of us. Yeah. So I love the videos that you have and even blogs online that you have on the segment called The Elegant Response. I think that was what I'd asked you a while back. I asked you a question related to that on how to be polite when you're faced with difficult situations. So how do you come up with such apt responses to, these questions and these dilemmas? Are these real life experiences that you're taking from, or is there some other inspiration? Are people sending in their questions? I would love to know.
Yeah, it's both actually. So thank you very much for this question. It's both. I get these questions quite a lot. I appreciate them immensely because from the reasons that you've just explained and supported, is that a lot of people struggle with how to respond to this. Oftentimes they just sit in silence because they don't know what to say. They don't feel empowered in giving a response, or maybe they give a response that is not how they would like to have responded, which is a learning curve. Like we're learning every day, we're learning. So I get a lot of questions like this. So that's kind of where that came from. This is in the effective communications hat that I wear, is how to effectively communicate. This is also experiences that I've had. So having traveled, again, and the wonderful experience, having traveled and worked in so many different countries, in certain cultures, certain questions is impolite. In other cultures, it's not impolite whatsoever. Being aware of that helps me. This is I guess how to differentiate myself. It helps me know that, okay, if I'm asked this in the United States, it's impolite. If I'm asked this in India, it's not impolite. And I know where they're coming from with it. And I'm not going to go into the defensive or emotional or judgmental. I'm going to go into the effective way of communicating in whatever way I need to do that. If that's just answering the question, or if that's deferring the question, or if that's setting a boundary, whatever it is. But this is where I think always meeting these challenging situations with as much grace as possible, if not for the situation, although we should try, not for the situation and not for the other individual, but for yourself, because you are responsible for your behavior and your reaction, and you're living to your standard of how to communicate with others and how to engage with other people. And so again, we should always extend regardless of other people's behavior. And actually when they're rude or impolite or unkind, that is when this gets challenged the most. It's when it's the hardest to respond in a constructive way. So it's an opportunity for you to strengthen what you believe in and respond. So instead of getting defensive or emotional or whatever, giving the benefit of the doubt, even if you really feel like it's not warranted, like even if you feel like they really don't deserve the benefit of the doubt, but you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, turning the other cheek, taking the high road, and then working backwards from the objective. So if the objective is, I need to communicate a boundary to this person because that question is really inappropriate, or maybe it's an auntie that has asked you for like the 15th time when you're having your second child, maybe that happens, or like when you're having a child in the first place, or when you're getting married, like this one. These are questions we get a lot when you're getting married. We, again, by committing that you're going to approach this in a certain way, you are, again, you're going to follow that formula, but you're also bringing awareness to the fact that you know this is a difficult conversation for you. This is potentially a trigger for you. Giving the benefit of the doubt allows not just for the emotional response of that's so incredibly rude and that's horrible. It allows for, could they mean something else? Is there something else here? Is their intention bad? Am I taking cultural and age into this assessment as well? Because there is that as well. So we need to be very aware that both of those factors. So all of this is working in our brain before we respond, and then trying to be, all of that considered, trying to be as constructive as possible to whatever end that you want to reach in the way you construct the response. Because again, you have a personal brand, and you want to stick to that personal brand, and that personal brand is, I'm going to behave in a certain way regardless of how other people are just. Now, does this happen all the time? No, I mean, it's tough. It doesn't happen all the time. It's really difficult to always be committed to this, but commit to it and you adopt it and you practice it, it becomes habit. So I get these questions. The way that I respond to them is exactly how I respond to these questions. And I've been asked about, I would say, a good percentage of the questions that I get asked. I've been asked them in a professional context. I've been asked them in a personal context, and it's honestly how I would respond to it in that same way. So that's kind of how that came out, the elegant response, which is posted on Mondays. I do really love this. Effective communications is probably my favorite topic in that I coach. It's my favorite because everything comes down to communications. Everything comes down to communications and how you communicate with others and how you engage others.
Wonderful. So nice. I feel like confidence is a very important part of self-image. So I am someone who had to work on it for a very long time. And I am now very confident about the way I look and the way I dress and all of that. But I feel like there are still some moments when, a third person comes in and they probably give a very unwarranted comment or a question. So, yes. I mean, and that really hampers the way I look at myself for the next 2 days till I get back into my previous mindset. So, what is probably a good response for not that person, but for yourself in that sort of a situation? Because again, the elegant response is a good way to respond to that person, but how do you make yourself feel better in such a situation? Because I feel like confidence has a lot to do with your self-image and how you present yourself.
Yes, totally. No, confidence is very large part of how you're presenting yourself, because again, confidence, not only how we present ourselves is physically, maybe it's the way that we style ourselves, the way we hold ourselves in presence. It's also the way we think. So negative thinking, when you have a confident mind, you lean in towards positive thinking and constructive thinking and growth and things of this nature. When you are, unfortunately, when you are not so confident, or you're self-conscious, or whatever has triggered that in you or has created that within you, it's the opposite, unfortunately. We lean often into more negative thinking, more self-critical thinking, jealousy, and things of this nature, which are not constructive for our growth and for who we are. So that, unfortunately, that's the balance there between the two. So confidence is incredibly important, not just for the way we look, but for the way that we are and the way that we behave. What to do in that case? So as a coach, what I would say is that if you've been on this journey towards confidence and you have found it within yourself, but you feel that you have moments, you feel not as strong in this truth, this new truth that you have come to the awareness of, which is great. Because again, as a coach, if you come to this awareness, that's huge, because it's the biggest and hardest part. On those moments, start asking yourself, never ask yourself why you feel this way or why that person would say that, because why is a funnel, and it's very narrow. So it's going to get you, it's going to make your brain think that you need to find an answer. It doesn't explore everything else going on, and everything else going on there may be the reason why this is sitting so heavy on your shoulders. So the question in that case is, if somebody has said something to you about the way that you look, what is driving that response? What is going on maybe with that person? What is it about the criticism that's affecting me so much? How am I going to be able to move past this? What is it within me that this is triggering? Ask yourself these questions. It's so that the 2-day period, maybe let's just hypothetically, because you said 2 days. So if you've been focusing 2 days on this more negative loss of confidence, by initially asking yourself those questions, when you realize the awareness comes and you realize that you're struggling with this and that this has put you off your thing. First thing is that ask yourself, what am I feeling now? What is really going on here? Not just that comment. What is this triggering in myself? Where am I on my journey? Do these kind of questions, does this kind of statement really matter? Not should I be having this feeling or not, because you have it. So that's it. It's there. asking yourself these questions, and do it as soon as you realize you have the awareness, because this will help you move through that process faster. It will also make you realize that you've been on a journey and towards confidence and towards building yourself. You're still on that journey, and it's okay to have moments like this, because this is not a full stop. This is not a full stop in that journey of confidence. This is just one little hiccup in it where you're like, okay, now this is challenging my confidence. So let me lean into the confidence by asking myself these questions, by investigating what's going on, because maybe they made a comment about weight, for example. They made a comment about weight, and you may be in full confidence of your weight and of your body as one should be. You may be fully owning that, but for some reason, there's still a trigger. So is it because of this person in general, because, their opinion, it matters, or because you love them, or is it because there's a history because they used to bully you a lot and this is bringing this back up? Is it that what exactly is going on? Is it the person themselves that's just negativity? Because there's a lot of people, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, I think they mask whatever is going on with them by projecting outward and then trying to take it out on us. So asking yourself, is this really a trigger within me at all, or is it just hurtful and I'm trying to find balance in this hurt now? Or can I just let this go, because really this has nothing to do with me? Most of the time, it has nothing to do with you. People's behavior, negative behavior towards you, cruelty, and especially, I don't know if you've seen any of the lives where it's heartbreaking for me, actually, when people comment that they are being made fun of because they have a handicap or a speech impediment. I'm sorry if it gets very emotional for me. I don't understand the cruelty there, because it's, you imagine the suffering that person is already going through, trying to adjust within a society that focuses on normalization of things. Things that are outliers are always going to be criticized, unfortunately. So this person is already struggling enough. You need to add pain to that situation. It's something that's unbelievable to me. I don't really understand. So in that case, whatever is happening in those kind of situations, it's much more to do with the person that is saying those things than anything to do with the other person. So when you feel a lack of confidence in yourself for whatever reason, lean into, I'm on a journey. I'm there. This is triggering me. It's not triggering me. What is it saying? What is it doing within me? I'm going to grow through it. Or maybe I'm just going to dismiss it and say, you know what? It was hurtful. I'm in a little bit of a funk now because it was hurtful, but this actually didn't even touch my confidence because it's the other person. It's not me. I've done my work. I've done my work inside, and I'm actually really okay with my work. I've just asked myself these questions. It's really the other person, and let me move forward. And we're human, so we have good days and bad days. I wake up some days and I'm like, this is amazing, I've got it. I wake up some days and I'm just like, in my team, when I talk to them in the morning, they're like, they can hear it. They're like, okay, so where are we today with, recording? You know what I mean? Like, where are we? Because we're human. I mean, we're all human. I think the issue with being an elegance advisor is you think you have to be like perfect all the time. I am not by any means. Everything you're seeing in my what I'm teaching is how I do live, but I also have moments where I'm trying really hard to make sure I live to my standard, but there are days where you can't do it. There are just days you can't do it. And we have everything. We have children, we have spouses, we have work, we have life, we have pandemic, we have, unfortunately we have loss in our life. We have a lot of things, it's not easy. And I think the more we really lean into being human and giving ourselves a break. And this is a journey. It's a very long journey. God willing, it's long. So let's go with that, So that would be what I would say. If you ever don't feel confident in yourself, that would be it. You're on a journey and just recommit to it.
Taylor, again, I cannot stop complimenting how you speak and your thought process. Really, I feel so good speaking to you, and it just makes me feel so nice the way you talk about everything. It's so beautiful. I love it. You're just a beautiful person inside out, I have to say.
It's very kind. I'm touched. Thank you.
Such a wonderful chat, and I hope to speak to you again. Probably we'll conduct a few sessions on here with Asian Herald, and that would be amazing as well, if you're free.
That would be amazing. Well, thank you so much for listening to you. I appreciate it.